The room that wasn't there. Some doors lead to places that shouldn't exist. It was a cold October evening when Daniel returned to his apartment. The autumn wind howled outside as he stepped into the dimly lit hallway of his building. He had lived here for nearly 5 years, and everything about this place was familiar. The peeling wallpaper, the faint scent of old wood, the flickering overhead lights, all of it was normal, or at least, it should have been. As he reached his apartment door 3B, something made him stop. The door next to his, 3C, was slightly ajar. That was strange. Apartment 3C had been empty for months. The previous tenant, an old man who rarely spoke, had moved out, and no one had rented the place since. The landlord even mentioned that it was still undergoing renovations. But now, there was a dim glow coming from inside. Daniel hesitated. Perhaps the landlord had finally found a new tenant. But why would they leave the door open? A soft creak echoed through the hallway. Daniel turned sharply, his heart pounding. The door to 3C had moved just an inch, but enough for him to notice. The gap widened ever so slightly, like an invitation. The cold breeze drifted from within. He should have walked away. He knew that. But something, curiosity, or something deeper, made him step forward. Slowly, cautiously, he pushed the door open. The room inside was dark to dark. The glow he had seen earlier was gone. His eyes struggled to adjust. But there was something deeply wrong. The air was thick and heavy, and the walls felt off. This wasn't apartment 3C. At least, not how he remembered it. The layout was completely different. The furniture, the walls, even the floor, it was all wrong. The room was larger than it should have been, stretching impossibly far into the darkness. It looked old, abandoned, as if no one had lived here for decades. And then, Daniel saw the door. At the far end of the room stood a single wooden door. It was slightly open, revealing nothing but pitch blackness beyond. Something inside Daniel screamed for him to leave. This wasn't right. This wasn't real. But his feet carried him forward before his mind could stop them. He reached out, barely touching the door with his fingertips. Daniel slammed the door behind him, the one leading back to the hallway, shut with a violent force. Daniel spun around, his breath caught in his throat. He ran to the door, twisting the knob, pulling at it with all his strength. Locked. Panic clawed at his chest. He turned back to the room, now barely illuminated by a faint, sickly light from somewhere unseen. The air was colder now, the walls seeming to pulse slightly, as if breathing. And then, he heard it. A whisper. It came from behind the wooden door. A voice, low, murmuring, almost calling his name. Daniel backed away, his body trembling. "Who's there?" he demanded, though his voice barely came out as a whisper. The voice stopped. Silence pressed down on him like a weight. Then the sound of footsteps, not walking. Running. From the other side of the door. Daniel's heart nearly stopped. The footsteps were getting closer. Louder. Rushing straight towards him. He turned, pounding on the locked door behind him, trying to force it open. The running grew louder, faster. It was right there, just beyond the wooden door. Then it stopped, right at the threshold. Daniel stood frozen, his breath shallow. He could feel something, someone on the other side, just inches away. And then, ever so slowly, the door began to open. The darkness inside was deeper than anything he had ever seen. It was void-like, endless, as though reality itself stopped at that threshold. And then, something stepped out. Daniel didn't wait to see what it was. He threw himself against the locked door one last time, and this time it opened. He stumbled into the hallway, falling onto the floor. The air was warm again, normal. The lights flickered overhead. Apartment 3C's door was closed. Panting, heart racing, he scrambled to his feet and backed away. He turned, fumbled with his keys, and locked himself inside his own apartment. For hours, he sat by the door, calmly listening. Nothing. No whispers. No footsteps. Just silence. Maybe it was all in his head. Maybe he had imagined it. Maybe a sound, a soft creak. Daniel's blood turned to ice. It was coming from inside his apartment. Slowly, trembling, he turned his head. The door to his bedroom, which he had left open, was now slightly ajar. And from the darkness inside, a voice, low, familiar, whispered, "You left the door open."